documentary appraisal with ex post facto.
I mean, I hope to never hear Mike say that again. I'll punch him in the face.
Though we're apart these days, we're sharing more. So, at Geico, we'd like to say thanks. Thanks for sharing your savage dance moves. Thanks for sharing your DIY haircut fails. Thanks for sharing your inner lip sync star. Now, it's our turn to share with the Geico Give Back, a 15% credit on car and motorcycle policies for current and new customers. Because we're committed for the long haul, the 15% credit lasts your full policy term. Visit geico.com/giveback for more info and eligibility.
Keeping your vehicle going keeps you going, and these days, you can't be too prepared. At Advance Auto Parts, we're here whenever and however you need us. Take our free battery testing, for example, with no appointment necessary. And if it turns out you need a new one, we'll even install it for free with batteries starting at just $79.99. We also offer curbside pickup, so you can have any order brought right out to your vehicle. Advance your auto at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
For This Week in Sports History, I'm JP. In 1900, James Jeffries knocks out James Corbett in 23 rounds for the heavyweight boxing title. In 1953, in his first world heavyweight title defense, Rocky Marciano knocks out former champion Jersey Joe Walcott in the first round at Chicago Stadium. In 1958, Stan Musial is the 8th player to get 3,000 hits. Musial set NL records for career hits, runs batted in, games played, at-bats, and runs scored. In 1970, Atlanta Braves' Hoyt Wilhelm pitches in his 1,000th game, losing to the Cards 6-5. Wilhelm, who fought in World War II, is 6th in MLB history, pitching in 1,070 games. In 1986, Reggie Jackson hit his 537th home run, passing Mickey Mantle into 6th place. And in 2007 PGA Players Championship TPC at Sawgrass, American Phil Mickelson wins by 2 strokes ahead of runner-up Sergio Garcia of Spain. The event played in May for the first time. That's This Week in Sports History. I'm JP.
The teams, the games, the fans, the local talk. This is ESPN Pensacola 1330 AM, 99.1 FM.
Nick Saban has a message for us regarding the coronavirus.
First of all, I hope this message finds you and your family safe and well. On behalf of our program, we want to give thanks to all the medical professionals and caregivers in our state and across the country in these challenging times. Our daily routines have changed dramatically over these past weeks. As we have said to our team, we share the same message to all of you. Please understand the following guidelines of social distancing. We ask that everyone please wash your hands often. Stay at home if at all possible. And when you have to be out in public, make sure you keep 6 feet between you and the nearest person. We are in this together, and as one team, we will get through these difficult times. And together, we look forward to all that's to come, like the opportunity to play college football this fall. But the best and safest way to ensure that happens is to listen to the experts, follow their guidelines, and take care of each other. Stay safe and roll Tide.
We are strong, we are resilient, and we will get through this together. But these are stressful times, and it's important to also practice good self-care. It's normal to feel overwhelmed, anxious, or afraid, but there is hope. Reach out to someone, connect with your friends, stay in touch with your community, and know that you are not alone. Learn more at wearebroadcasters.com/hope, furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
Papi, walking around our block is like walking around the world.
How do you mean?
My friend Kayla's from India, Lily's from China, and Basa's from Ethiopia.
We're lucky we live in a diverse community where people from different backgrounds live in the same neighborhood.
I like it.
To learn more about how the Fair Housing Act promotes diversity, visit HUD.gov/fairhousing. The Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, and familial status. A message from HUD in partnership with the National Fair Housing Alliance.
Hi, I'm Danica Patrick. Watching my nieces grow, play, and learn is amazing, but not every child gets to be carefree. 1 in 6 kids in the U.S. are hungry. This breaks my heart, and it's something that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and gives it to families in need. To help, visit feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council. This is ESPN Pensacola 1330 AM and 99.1 FM, the only local station that talks sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. From Gullick and Wingo to the Sports Drive with Chad Brilliante. Plus talk football with Coach K at noon, sports call every Saturday. If you'd like to partner with us as an advertiser or a promotional partner, just give us a call at 262-6000.
You're listening to ESPN Pensacola 1330 AM, 99.1 FM. All sports, all the time. WEBY, Milton, Pensacola.
The following has been produced by Talk Football LLC. Former Florida Gators quarterback, NFL quarterback, and NFL head coach. Coach K. Stevenson has a resume second to none, and now he's sharing his insider information with you. Talk Football with Coach K starts right now on ESPN Pensacola.
Welcome into Talk Football with Coach K. JP here with you alongside former NFL head coach K. Stevenson on this Thursday afternoon. Hope everybody is doing well right now. We appreciate you tuning in. Hope, stay safe. Continue to wash your hands. Practice social distancing. Like we've said before, it's good to see businesses starting to open back up in our area. The beaches opening back up, getting positive signs, but we have to continue doing what got us to that point. So, with that being said, as we always start off the show here, I want to send a shout-out to our first responders and our healthcare workers. We thank you so much for what you do, not just during this time. Listen, this is something that, these people are getting recognized now more than ever, but as they always should be, for just what they do, working tirelessly day in and day out, especially right now with what's going on. We appreciate the work that you've put in. As well as our essential workers out there. Listen, grocery store employees, truck drivers, all these people, if you're essential, you know who you are. We thank you so much. Making our lives right now is, as normal as possible in a time like this. I know I say it every day, but I think it goes without saying, you know what, these people have put themselves out there. We take for granted some things, and COVID-19 is awoken us to some of this stuff, and when you look at it, just say thank you to those folks. If you go out to get groceries today or whatever it may be, whether it's a gas station or anything, just thank those people. You see a truck driver out there grabbing a bite to eat, thank him, because they're bringing things that we need in a time right now when there was a lot of uncertainty. We're starting, like I said, to get back to normal, but we appreciate the heck out of all these folks right now. And look, Coach, I know we do this every day, and I know you feel the same way, but how are you doing today, my friend?
I'm doing well, and certainly I feel the same way, and I'm glad that you send a shout-out to all the people that you do here to start the show.
Coach, we have a ton to get to, but just before we do that, we want to thank again our sponsors for sticking with us through this time and what they mean to our community and also our community. Listen, our listeners out there, I get questions walking around, whether I'm getting groceries or whatever I'm doing. Folks out there, of course, staying 6 feet away. But people sending me questions all the time, just, hey, listen to you guys, appreciate you guys continuing to do what you do. I really need it right now. And look, I have plenty of friends that are first responders, a couple firefighters, and they turn us on and listen. And it's a good getaway for them. And that's the whole point in this. That's what, with sports, the one thing I said, but we had Bill Carr on the show, of course, last week. But one thing I mentioned before we talked to him on the show was, Bill, I think during this, people realize now that sports has an outlet. So there is room for sports in society, and people need it. And, Coach, I know we'll talk more about that moving on today. We have plenty to talk about, but I think it's important. Look, sports has its own market, and for people that scoffed at that before, they see it. They realize that now, that it's a great outlet for us. And you know what? I'm glad that we can reach people, Coach. It's awesome to do what we do each and every day. But, Coach, I want to start – look, great news yesterday, big-time news, something that, you know what, Coach, you broke it before it even broke. Look, Governor Ron DeSantis coming out and offering the state. He opened the state to pro teams. Now, we saw the Arizona governor do this a day before, but DeSantis opening the state to pro teams and sports in general. This is great news for the state of Florida. This is great news for pro sports as well, from MLB, NBA, NFL, college, whatever it may be. And I just got a report. Jeffrey D. just sent me an article as well that the governor has actually offered up Ben Hill Griffin Stadium to NFL teams. So, look, the University of Florida right there in Ben Hill Griffin Stadium getting, an offer to play there for the NFL teams. That's awesome. I think, Coach, this is phenomenal, not only just for the sports in general, but for our state as well.
Well, think about it now. Yeah, it really is, and the governor must have gotten a little heads up on some of the things that are being talked about, and I think it was extremely apropos for him to offer that because the facilities are there. Think about the time that they would need before a season. You could bring a ton of teams in here if they didn't have the appropriate laws in their home for their home teams, like maybe the Giants and the Jets, maybe Detroit, maybe the California teams, maybe even Seattle. I don't know. But if they didn't, you could have all types of facilities available for that could be converted for scrimmages, not scrimmages, but practices and scrimmages too, if they wanted to have them with another team, and they'd be in the same locale, which would be another advantage. And then just think about in the state of Florida, you've got 2 stadiums in Tampa, you got 2 stadiums in Orlando, you got 2 in Miami, you got Jacksonville, you got University of Florida Stadium and Florida State Stadium. Nearby, you've got New Orleans, which would certainly be open. Texas would be open, so you got Houston and Dallas. Georgia would be open, so you got Atlanta. I think North Carolina would, so you'd have Charlotte. There would be ample stadiums to move all the NFL teams into one regional location and play, and a lot of the trips could just be bus trips if they wanted to cut out on expenses that way, just to accommodate. Now, all of this is supposition. Please hear me out. There's no way that this is something that's going to happen necessarily. We're not saying it's gospel. It's just supposition as to what options are going to the extent of exploring to make sure that we have football. We got to have football this fall, just like FDR in World War II mandated that they continue to play baseball. It's for the national psyche. We have to have it. If you could imagine what would happen if we didn't have football. And the human condition needs sports, like you said. It's a not only a diversion, but it's something that people get actively involved in, putting themselves in these situations and living through sports, just like we need the arts and music and literature and other, you call them diversions if you want to, but they're more than that. They're food for living. And sports is a vital part of that. So, yes, we need it. And yes, they're looking at different options as to how to make this happen. And so I think we need to be very optimistic about that.
Yeah, I think it's important what you said, Coach, talking about, look, this is not gospel. We're saying what happens here is the option for if push comes to shove, these teams, listen, if these teams can play, they will play. If they can make money, they will make money. This goes a long way into this. It's just an opportunity. If the team is looking for a home, DeSantis says, listen, Florida can be that home for you if you need it. Arizona has said the same thing. These are 2 states that, outside of when you look at Miami and in that situation down there in South Florida, yes, it's a hot spot right now, but the rest of the state of Florida is in pretty good shape. We're moving forward, and I'm not going to get in the political side of this. I'm saying from the sports side of this, it's something that can happen. There are so many venues, like you mentioned, Coach, that we can play games, no matter whatever sport it is. I mean, you look at baseball. Baseball has talked about going to Arizona to play, but we have the same facilities down there in South Florida when you're talking about Clearwater and all those other places. So this is going to be really interesting. Look, NFL right now has already said it's planning to play all its games. They're right now planning to play at home stadiums, and we'll see what happens. There's still plenty of time. We're not saying any of that, but overall for the state of Florida, this is great news. It's great news for sports in general because it is a backup plan. That's what we want to make sure that you guys understand, our listeners out there. This is simply a backup plan right now. When DeSantis say it's open up.
And let me interrupt on one other thing, one other important point here. I think, JP, that it's important that we make a distinction here. For example, what's going on in baseball right now? Huge difference in football, specifically the NFL and baseball. I'm going to tell you, if baseball does not play because of this money issue with the players, they may as well pack their bags because baseball may not ever recover if they don't get this done and done properly in play. NFL is totally different. Listen, you realize that the NFL contract, player contract, they're paid by game. Every Monday following a home game, basically most teams follow that. Players go in and pick up their checks for that game, for that week. In other words, whatever they're going to be paid for the year, whether it's whatever it is, could be $10 million. But it's equally divided between the 16 games. So every week they pick up a check. Well, if they don't play, technically, they don't get paid. Okay, and there is another stipulation about starting with the first game. Well, if you don't have the first game, if you back it up, there's another stipulation there that creates some problems. So the players should be fighting to get every game they can in and get paid.
Yeah, I agree, Coach. And that was going to bring me to my next point here. And we look at baseball right now, and what Coach is talking about is the issue they're having, of course, trying to play 80 games here, which is basically half a season. But of course, the players' salaries would be cut in half because you make whatever you play. So when you look at this situation for some of these guys, Blake Snell, the young left-hander, really good player for Tampa Bay. This is a guy that, Coach, I falter a little bit because this was also the guy not very long ago, not even a month ago, that came out and said, look, whatever we got to do to play, let's just play. Like, it's worth it. Let's get out there. Let's start playing. Let's do it. And now he's like, well, it's not worth it. It's not worth it to go out there and put myself at risk. And you know what? But pushing all that aside, the financial aspect of this is Major League Baseball is saying, well, 40% of our revenue is our fans. So if we're going to play half these games, you're going to half your salary. Well, we have to also account that normally we're getting revenue coming from fans, and that's a part of what pays your salary. So that's where Major League Baseball, the Owners Association, is trying to say, well, all right, so let's revamp this. Let's look at this again because everything's not the same. So I think it's important to talk about the financial aspect of this because a lot of people are saying, well, the NFL could run into the same thing here. And I won't say the same thing necessarily, Coach, but it's something that is interesting going to be moving forward. But ultimately, you're right. Listen, these players, if they don't play, they don't get paid, and that's just how it is. So these guys are going to find a way to get this done. But, when you look at the processes of, well, this could be the same interesting aspect for the NFL that it is right now and the problem that it is for MLB, I don't know. I don't know all the financials of all this.
No, there's another safeguard, if you will, for the NFL. The negotiation and the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, stipulates that the next bargaining agreement is next year in 2021, and that it will be it'll base the 2021 salary negotiation on this year 2020 revenues and number of there's another stipulation in there that could lower the expectation for a new CBA for the players. So they've got to get back. Now, the only thing that this does, I will have to say that, only over 15%, between 15 and 16% is their revenue is derived from ticket sales. But there's quite a bit that they make when they get people to the stadium. One is parking. It's amazing what it costs for parking at an NFL stadium. It's outrageous. And then there's concessions. You put 60,000, 70,000 people in the stadium, there's a lot of concession money right there. And ancillary revenue like properties, meaning jerseys and shirts and hats and gloves and all the other things that they sell with people at the stadium. That's an income. So that runs it up to about 22% on their revenue. Depends on stadium. But by far, the bulk of their revenue comes from television. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go along. And there's not a comparison, not really a favorable comparison between football and baseball.
Right. I think that's the important part is, they're sports that are worth a lot of money, but the way football does business is different than the way baseball does business. And we need to remember that. And now it could be similar to certain extents here, but the money that comes in and the way that the revenue is drawn is night and day different. But, Coach, I want to mention this before we go to break here. Look, the NFL, of course, coming out and talking, they're announcing dates and times for preseason games. Now, of course, right now we don't believe that the preseason games are going to have fans. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but right now we've even heard them talking about Xing the games. But my question to you being, because I hear people saying, well, how dare them? How are they going to schedule games right now when we're talking about even trying to get regular season games going on? Coach, I don't know, but this is just going off as a general fan here. Those preseason games are important, as we have to remember they have new guys that are drafted in, new guys that are brought to the team. These guys need to go against other people as well. I don't know how important is playing preseason games to NFL teams whenever we're talking about, whether it's fans. I don't care about the fan side of this. But regardless, how important is these preseason games for these NFL teams moving forward? You've been a part of this. You've coached in these games. You've played in these games, Coach. What does it mean to these teams, and is it absolutely necessary to have these games?
Well, here's how I feel about preseason games. Yeah, preseason games are valuable for the young kids, more so than obviously than the veterans. But this year, due to circumstances, I think it's ridiculous to even think about trying to schedule preseason games. It's almost ridiculous because of all the problems with travel and accommodations and so on and so forth. I think what they could do in lieu of preseason games is allow teams to pair up, get together, maybe for a week or with two different teams. You have practices and allow scrimmages at the end of the week. Let them work together in practice and then have scrimmages, which is done in most cases now anyway. But let that be the preseason preparation as opposed to preseason games. Now that's not going to sit well with owners because the owners obviously they make some money during preseason. If they eliminate those preseason games, that's going to cut their total revenue sums to some extent. But it's better to get the season in than to worry about preseason games. They're not going to be looked on favorably, I don't think, by the public, and they certainly won't by people who are trying to make this fit. So my suggestion would be that, and let them accommodate for that and not have the preseason games.
Coach, the last thing, this is a question that was asked to me, was we see the joint practices that these teams have. Can those joint practices be almost as equal to a preseason game, especially when you're talking about these young players going against somebody else and then putting what they've learned to the test? Could the joint practices kind of fill in that void?
Yeah, I think so. You can have your practices where you go through all the different situations, and that's not full speed. It's like a practice anyway. We used to call it FUD tempo, not full speed, but FUD tempo. And then at the end of that week, have a scrimmage. Have a full-scale scrimmage where you have everything's full speed. Go ahead, get it done. And at have one of those sessions. What I suggest is each team has 2 weeks. 1 week with one team and another week with another team. And go through go through all the practices and have that scrimmage. And I think that has to suffice this year, other than trying to include fans and all the other restrictions that would be in place for preseason games.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, we've seen teams like the Dolphins talking about traveling and the Falcons traveling to go play or to work out with some of these other teams that maybe they play early on in the season to cut down on travel. But it's going to be interesting to see nonetheless. But, Coach, listen, we're up against a break. When we come back, we've talked a little bit about the NFL and their upcoming season. We're going to talk about, the college football side of things, and we're going to hear from Commissioner Greg Sankey when he was talking to Feinbaum on the Feinbaum Show about the upcoming season and some of the rumors of what we heard about the conference separating, and, some other conference commissioners talking, maybe redacting some of their statements they said earlier. We'll get to more of that right here on Talk Football with Coach K on ESPN Pensacola.
I'm attorney Stephen Luongo with Levin, Papantonio, Thomas, Mitchell, Rafferty, and Proctor in Pensacola, Florida. Distracted driving is a dangerous epidemic on America's roadways. In 2016 alone, over 3,000 people were killed in motor vehicle crashes involving distracted drivers. This according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. For more information, please visit us today online at levinlaw.com. Please be safe on the roadways. Stop the text, stop the wrecks.
When you're looking for a great deal on a reliable new or certified pre-owned vehicle, you can't beat Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola. Bob Tyler Toyota has the best selection in town at incredible low prices. You can check out their amazing inventory from Camrys to Tundra trucks to 4Runners. It's all at Bob Tyler Toyota, and you can find it online at bobtylertoyota.com. Also score a touchdown this football season with the car of your dreams. Again, it's only at Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola.
Hello, sports fans. Miles Bentley here, General Manager at Hill Kelly Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Pensacola. Growing up, I always loved sports. Nothing but net, out of the park, through the uprights. Sink the puck Bentley, that was me. But my love of the game couldn't beat my love for Pensacola and helping folks get on the road of dreams in a new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram. Sure, I never went to the big leagues in sport, but we're all pro here at Hill Kelly Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram. Proud to be in Pensacola.
Sometimes your bank, your family, and your friends love you, but they don't have the money to help you. Sometimes we have chances to make money, but the old saying, you've got to have money to make money, rings true. At Pensacola Specialty Pond, we can help. If you have trucks, heavy equipment, airplanes, boats, jet skis, anything with value, Pensacola Specialty Pond can loan you that short-term money you need. No credit checks, and at Pensacola Specialty Pond, you're going to find the money and the discretion you need.
Now at 6428 Pensacola Boulevard, north of Car City. Call 432-9050, 432-9050.
Here are the ESPN Pensacola 1330 AM 99.1 FM contest rules. You can win one prize per household per contest in any 30-day period, unless specified by individual contest rules. All prizes are non-transferable, non-redeemable for cash, or exchangeable for any other contest prize. Prizes must be redeemed within a 30-day period of winning and must be 18 years of age or older to win. For a complete list of rules, visit ESPNpensacola.com.
Well, here we are again, and I got to tell you, Jim, this match has me really concerned.
Here we have a powerful heavyweight, a train, weighing in at 6,000 tons. And this hasty lightweight challenger, a car, at just 1.5 tons?
This does not bode well for the car, or the people in it.
It's no contest. Every day, people are injured or killed trying to beat a train at rail crossings. See tracks, think train.
There's only one name in town when it comes to afternoon local sports talk. The Sports Drive with Chad Brilliante.
Some athletes don't want to be given... nobody does. Now, look, when you play with your pops as it gets older, one of the most embarrassing things... My daughter's 3. I just slam it right in her face right at the play school hoop. Like right there, like I'm Zion Williamson.
The games, the players, the fans. ESPN Pensacola, 1330 AM, 99.1 FM.
You can watch Coach K talk football live right now on our YouTube channel at ESPN Pensacola 1330.
Welcome back to Talk Football with Coach K. JP here with you alongside former NFL head coach Kay Stevenson on this Thursday afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well, staying safe right now, and if you're out and about, we appreciate you tuning in to us. We're talking some football as always. Coach, we've talked a lot about the NFL season. We'll get some more into that a little bit later on. But right now, of course, talking some college football. Now, a lot of things are happening each and every day during this time, and we're getting positive signs, and then it seems like for every positive article, there's 15 that are negative, and that's just how life goes in general. I've learned that very quickly at a young age. But nonetheless, talking about the SEC here, it's important to remember now the SEC, of course, talking about their medical task force. Now, I believe every conference has a medical task force, but this is a task force comprised of medical professionals representing all the universities in the SEC, and these are the people that are behind the scenes trying to figure out, okay, where do we move forward about dates and things like this, and how are we looking in this situation, and what if we do this, things like that, the professionals that we want to call them, and the people that we need to listen to as well. Now, Greg Sankey went on Feinbaum, and of course the SEC commissioner, he's, depends on how you want to look at him. He's a guy that, I'll listen to him right now. I'll trust him just because of what's moving forward. But he also was asked about the upcoming season and the rumors about conferences separating. This is his clip talking about, what he's kind of heard and what you should and shouldn't listen to at this time.
Question that begins with if starts to reduce the irreducible. So we're reducing to this yes or no, this or that type question. I was asked a question, and I think if the entirety is played, I spoke of the connection between the Autonomy 5 conferences being likely stronger than I've ever experienced. We're speaking every day. But even more importantly, our schedules are connected. So the notion that one lightly thinks about going off and doing something in an independent way is actually not attached to reality, because our reality has schools playing University of Colorado, playing Notre Dame, playing USC, playing Texas. And so over and over we have these connections, which says it really is important for us to remain connected. And then you see things kind of nationally. So yesterday was a story that the Pac-12 has looked at conference-only scheduling. For all of us, we're going to go through any number of kind of backroom, pencil-to-paper what-ifs. But the second point of my fundamental is, in addition to the focus on the virus and the circumstances around the virus guiding us, is my focus is on preparing to play football as scheduled. And then at certain times we're going to have to adapt. So I don't think people should overreact to these little statements or these little acknowledgments. Yeah, we have these ideas in mind, but we're not at that point yet.
Coach, I think it's important, and basically, you know what, that's exactly what you would expect him to say at this time. Nothing outlandish. We hear the rumors of the Power 5 separating and going their own way just because of Mark Emmert, but that's been a long time coming. This has only kind of seemed to speed up the process. But when you look at this, I don't think for people saying that, conferences, if you're not ready, we'll move on, I think that's a possibility. That's not what's going to happen, and we know how that gets blown up in the media. But, of course, these Power 5 conferences, they're close, but we'll find out just how close they are if it really comes down to it. Now, the Pac-12 has been something that it's interesting enough of them coming out and saying, we may do the conference-only schedule. Well, we have to remember that everybody's talked about that situation as well. What makes it tough is the governors of California and Oregon and Washington and these people saying we're not going to have games. We're not going to have games until after September, all these other things. And if teams now are ready to play, then they're ready to play, which is interesting enough. We talk about, big games, like there's big marquee games. We saw that Alabama has possibly reached out to TCU to play because USC was supposed to be their opening game. And if they're not allowed to play games, then how does that affect them? But, Coach, when we look at this, I know we've talked about it a little bit. For NFL teams, it's a lot easier. But when we break it down for college, could teams in the Pac-12 possibly leave? I mean, could they possibly leave to go maybe train somewhere else in another state that's open? There's some states that are near the West Coast, of course, like Wyoming's and stuff that are open that they could go train at. But how difficult could that be? And how difficult could it be to play, I guess, games in the college season if you have to move to another venue? You there, Coach?
Excuse me. Yeah. It's a good point. And we would have to see how much influence governors actually going to influence based on the fact that we've talked about already. What if the governor, you talk about unpopular decisions, what if the governor mandated no football in the state of California? Rams, Chargers, Southern Cal, UCLA, Cal, all of them. Now, the difference is, and I'm not sure how much this would play in it, Southern Cal is a private school. There are other schools. Stanford is a private school. So I'm not sure how much jurisdiction he might have over that, other than to say that we're not going to allow a gathering of that many people in a stadium in the state of California. So if he, in essence, tries to do away with football, I think there would be not only some pushback, but there would be some effort to play regardless of his edict. Now, that's my opinion. Well, one thing that Paul Feinbaum is such a great guy and does a super job, but he's been quite pessimistic about this whole situation now for a number of weeks. And in fact, I saw him on an ESPN television production where he said he didn't think that the Alabama Southern Cal game would ever happen the first game of the season. So then that may well be the case. I think they looked at that possibility. We told you about the contacting TCU, who had a game with California and Berkeley. So they might be able to play right there at Jerry World. I think accommodations are in place to handle an awful lot of possibilities, is the way I'm going to put it. And I think it starts with the Power Five. Now, whether the Pac-12 can participate legally or otherwise, I'm not sure, and what effort they might make to participate if they're not obligated by the governor, other than maybe the gathering of people in the stadium. So it could be. I know the National Football League, they're not governed by the National Football League is a corporation, and they can move those teams. They can move those teams anywhere they want to. So that won't be a problem. But this is going to be very, very interesting in college football, how they go through all the machinations here. They're going to have to go through, JP, and get this off the ground. To move a college football team to another location where you've got students, you're talking about 100 and some odd players usually. You're talking about massive logistical problems. You would have to have a place where accommodations would be readily available, and also a place to play, place to practice. All those things that you would have logistically would be very, very difficult for college teams to make that move.
Yeah, I think one thing, Coach, that I'll bring up now, I do want to mention or talk about in a second what Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby said, but something that Feinbaum brought up yesterday I think is very interesting. Now, this is a different side of things, but if the Pac-12 says that we're not going to play football, then possibly you're talking about these teams and these players being picked, saying, you know what, if we're not going to play, we're going to transfer and go somewhere else. And I think that's a realistic possibility if this happens, and maybe not, interesting to see how the NCAA, because remember, certain situations a player is granted immediate eligibility. So I'm not saying it's going to happen in a surplus, but it very well could. I think that's a real possibility that if like we said, the Pac-12 has not been very strong lately anyway, but the players, these big-time players, if they say we're not playing this year, these players could transfer out. And you know what? The NCAA realistically could probably get them a immediate eligibility. I think it's interesting to talk about that because it's something that it brings up. And that's where, you know what, I think for the Pac-12, they're going to have a decision to make, sooner rather than later. And, Coach, when you look at that, hearing me say that, Do you think that's a realistic possibility of players leaving to go to these other, Power 4 conferences to go play football if the Pac-12 shuts down?
I'll tell you what, you are right to bring that up because that is a certain possibility, and they better be looking at remedies for that. And that could be a massive disruption of their entire athletic programs. We don't even need to go. People can understand what that would do to their football, and if it does to football, what it would do to the rest of their athletic programs and to the university as a whole. So they better be thinking about those possibilities and considering those as they make any final decisions.
Yeah, I just think that's a very interesting take on things, as we have to remember, especially with the transfer rule and thing that is, up for grabs right now. But regardless of that situation, you believe the NCAA would say, you know what, we get it. You guys are immediately eligible to transfer. And what that would do, it's like what you talked about. Football doesn't happen for some of these people. Like, these programs can go away, and the money that they make, that's where I think real is going to happen. Real is going to recognize real, and what I mean by that is the reality of this all is going to come to fruition of no matter, trying to be politically correct is going to come to the point of, okay, do we just shut this down, meaning the millions upon millions of dollars that you lose, is it really worth it to take a stand on this? So, and the reason I say that is Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby, of course, came out and said that, look, as long as classes are conducted online, he believes that, well, you know what, you can play college athletics. Now, this is a guy, of course, that was all for if students aren't on campus, then we don't need to be having it. But he's saying if there's a way to get it online, then you know what, then we can play college football. He kind of goes back on his statement a little bit. And, Coach, this is exactly what we were talking about. It's funny just to see some of these people, you say the right things, you try to be politically correct in the beginning, and now the reality is kicking in that, you know what, you may not be able to put students on campus everywhere. But for a guy like Bob Bowlesby, did it surprise you that he came back and said what he said yesterday?
No, I think we're going to see quite a few people backing up here. And the closer we get to the so-called deadlines, you're going to see quite a few more. Now, even the SEC, I think Mullen was very outspoken, and I would tend to listen to what he had to say. I mean, I think you read between the lines, he was pretty adamant about whether other conferences agree to play or not, or want to play or not, and have impediments. We're going to play. So there's something there you better listen to, and that's. I don't think he was saying that just from a decision that he derived in Gainesville, Florida. I think there was quite a bit of conversation around that he put all that together. But yeah, you're going to see some people backing up. You bet you are.
Yeah, and that clip for Dan Mullen, Coach, I've got it. I want to play it real quick. It's about a minute long, and it's interesting because he talks about the flexibility and where we are, and talking about moving forward, no matter whether everybody can do it or not.
What does it look like if we maybe see the SEC, for instance, have a few or more than a few states and schools ready to play, but not everybody ready to play? What are your thoughts on that?
I think we just have to be ready to be flexible. I mean, we have a schedule that's been set right now, but our schedules get set so far in advance, for the reasons. But I think what everybody has to do is be ready to be flexible coming into this season. And hey, if we're ready to play football in Florida or in a couple of states, well, maybe we look at resetting the schedule. Playing the teams that we're able to play and get back out there and playing football. I think for the American psyche, football games being played would be a pretty good thing. I think you're starting to see other sports come back. I've seen when NASCAR's looking like it's going to be coming back. The PGA Tour looks like they're coming back. I think it'd be great for the American psyche to have football. And for our people, I think what we have to do is we can't sit here and get caught in the until every single school in the country is ready to get back and play football, no schools can start. I think that is a very naive and way of thinking. I don't think it's a very healthy way of thinking. I don't think it's good for the sport or the game of football. or to the individuals that are playing.
Coach, that's exactly what you talked about, and that's, Dan Mullen, that's the right point of view in all this is we can't sit around and just wait for everybody thinking of autonomy across the board on this. It's going to be different. Everybody's situation is going to be, not similar. It's no matter when you look at the cases and everything, we don't have to get into that. People listen. Anybody that's checked out the news or checked out the newspapers know these things are changing every day. But you look at the Northeast, these metropolitan areas, the cases are a lot worse than in other areas. So, Coach, you know what? Mullen is right on that. I think it's important that we don't get caught up in that of everything has to be the same. Now, like you talked about, a lot of these schools are going through different situations and planning for that, like we talked about, similar to Alabama reaching out to a TCU or somebody like that if they can't play USC, depending on sanctions and what's going on. So, you know what? One thing I will mention, Coach, before we go to break on this is the SEC is going to vote May 22nd on whether to bring players back to campus June 1st or June 15th. Now, that's June 1st or June 15th. There's no right now indecision on that. So somewhere in that time, sometime in June, they're planning on getting student-athletes back to the campus. I think that's a great situation moving forward here for these teams in the SEC. The SEC is in a lot better situation than a lot of places, of course, but bring them back. Look, that's a good sign moving forward, and I think right now we need some positivity. And, Coach, when you look at this, does this surprise you that they're going to try to bring them back as early as June 1st?
No, I think they better be, and they're already behind Coach O. Coach O's already made the decision that LSU is going to report June 1st. So
yeah,
I don't know who's going to go into Baton Rouge and tell him that they're not going to.
They may go into Baton Rouge and try to tell him, but they won't make it out alive. We know that with Baton Rouge. But nonetheless, I think it's interesting. You know what? That's a good sign moving forward, and people can scoff at that all they want to. But you know what? We're moving forward, and we're getting there, and we're going to get back to normal, whether people want to admit it or not. Through all this, we're learning. There's good signs coming out from other countries as well. We're going to get back to that normalcy. It may take a little while, and you know what? If you're scared, this is my opinion on this. If you're scared and you're worried about it, then continue doing what you're doing. But you know what? There are so many people out there right now that need sports, and we need sports, like you said, Coach, as just for the psyche of this country. And a lot of people realize that now. It's sometimes, the old saying is you don't realize what you have until it's gone. That's no more true now than ever. So, listen, we got to take a break, Coach. When we come back, the final team of us, we've broken down the SEC. We've almost broken down the ACC here. Wake Forest, Demon Deacons, Fred Robbins. That's his alma mater right there. He's a proud Wake Forest Demon Deacon, and he'll tell you about it. But, look, we're going to talk a little bit about Wake Forest for a few minutes, and then we're going to get into some more. Look, the Dak Prescott story. Every single day it changes here, but some interesting insight from a former NFL wide receiver about, well, maybe the Cowboys can play a little more chicken with Dak. Controversy right there to Emmitt Smith's statements. We'll talk about that right there and more whenever we come back on Talk Football with Coach K on ESPN Pensacola.
I'm attorney Stephen Luongo with Levin, Papantonio, Thomas, Mitchell, Rafferty, and Proctor in Pensacola, Florida. Distracted driving is a dangerous epidemic on America's roadways. In 2016 alone, over 3,000 people were killed in motor vehicle crashes involving distracted drivers. This according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. For more information, please visit us today online at levinlaw.com. Please be safe on the roadways. Stop the text, stop the wrecks.
When you're looking for a great deal on a reliable new or certified pre-owned vehicle, you can't beat Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola. Bob Tyler Toyota has the best selection in town at incredible low prices. You can check out their amazing inventory from Camrys to Tundra trucks to 4Runners. It's all at Bob Tyler Toyota, and you can find it online at bobtylertoyota.com. Also score a touchdown this football season with the car of your dreams. Again, it's only at Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola.
Hello, sports fans. Miles Bentley here, General Manager at Hill Kelly Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram in Pensacola. Growing up, I always loved sports. Nothing but net, out of the park, through the uprights. Sink the puck, Bentley. That was me. But my love of the game couldn't beat my love for Pensacola and helping folks get on the road of dreams in a new Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram. Sure, I never went to the big leagues in sport, but we're all pro here at Hill Kelly Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram. Proud to be in Pensacola.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Uh-huh.
Well, I noticed dry brush where we wanted our bonfire and suggested we move it. Then Smokey Bear showed up and hugged me.
So you noticed some wildfire hazards and moved your bonfire to a safer location.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Smokey, all right. Just letting you know you did good.
Hey, guys, that was Smokey. You owe me 20.
Well, congratulations, and thanks for calling. There are many ways to prevent a wildfire. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
Parents, good news! Help is here for your child's educational success. Sylvan Learning Center in Pensacola and Shalimar is excited to announce they are open and have amped up their standards to keep students and families safe and healthy. At a time like now, we know a lot of families have been struggling. Sylvan can help. Call Sylvan Learning Center today and let them help you make sure your kids don't fall behind. Call Sylvan Learning Center today at 1-800-EDUCATE to make sure they are ready to start the next school year strong.
Jackson Pace Pharmacy has exciting news for ED patients. Viagra 100 milligram generic is finally here. Get it today. 30 tablets for $80, less than $3 a pill. You heard right. Viagra 100 milligram generic is less than $3 a tablet. A prescription from your doctor is required, so stop by Jackson Pace Pharmacy and cash in on the savings today. 2256 West 9 Mile Road in Pensacola.
Hey, this is Chad Brillante from the Afternoon Sports Drive, and you're listening to Talk Football with Coach K on ESPN Pensacola, 1330 AM, 99.1 FM.
Welcome back to Talk Football with Coach K. JP here with you alongside former NFL head coach Kay Stevenson on this Thursday afternoon. Hope everybody's doing well. We're talking some football with you. And the final team of our breakdown here when we talk about, look, we've broken down the SEC, almost finished with the ACC, the Wake Forest Demon Deacons. It's a team that, you know what, outside of Fred Robbins, don't think there's a whole lot of fans around here. We love Fred Robbins. We appreciate him and all he does for us as well. But Coach, when you look at the 2019 Wake Forest Demon Deacons, it's a team that was actually pretty good when you really break it down. They went 8-5 last year, 4-4 in the ACC. Not necessarily great there, but Dave Clawson's done a pretty good job with that squad, averaging almost 32 points a game, which ranks about 42nd in the college football. Giving up 29 points a game, not going to really cut it. The season could have been a lot different, but you know what? That's about 76th in college football. And when you look at this team here, I want to look at the 2020 schedule real quick, and we'll talk about this team for just a minute. Opening up against they open up on the road at Old Dominion. Interesting enough, Old Dominion's got some interesting home games this year. Look, at home right there against Appalachian State, a team that they lost to last year. But you know what? Appalachian State went 13-1. Eli Drinkwitz did a great job with that squad. It's going to be a little bit different this year. Home again against Villanova. On the road to Bank of America Stadium. Interesting little game here against Notre Dame. On the road at Duke. At home against Miami. On the road to Doak Campbell Stadium. Take on the Florida State Seminoles. All right up the road there to NC State. Syracuse, they get them at home this year. That's their homecoming game. Going to be a lot of fun there. Of course, on the road to Louisville, the up-and-coming team, and then the gauntlet right here to take on Clemson Tigers. But you get them at home. I'm not sure if that'll matter too much, but you know what? Finishing the season off at home against Boston College. Like I said, this is a team that was 8-5 last year. For a lot of people, listen, if you're outside the fan base, you may not realize how successful they were, and it was one of their most successful seasons in program history. So, look, they played in a bowl game. They looked really good. They swept in-state rivals North Carolina, NC State, and Duke for just the fourth time ever. This is a team that, of course, they were in the top 25. This is big news for them. I know we talk about some of the schools like Alabama and LSU and Georgia and Florida State of always being in the top 25. Well, this is big things for them. Of course, had a broken NCAA record for 34 straight field goals. This is interesting. Now, you say, well, that was last year's team. It doesn't mean anything to this year, and, well, you're right. But one thing we have to remember, Jamie Newman at the quarterback position is gone now. This is a guy that's transferred to Georgia. This is supposed to be the guy that's a possible Heisman Trophy candidate for Georgia. Sam Hartman, it's his time to shine. This is a good young kid here. They're very excited about him moving forward. And we have to remember, this is a defense for Wake Forest that outside the last few games, they were pretty stout. So offensively, that's going to be where the question marks lie. Now, Hartman is a good quarterback. Like I said, they have a lot of faith in him. and he will most likely be the starter. Now, we didn't get the spring, so we don't know all these things, but health and development in the receiver room. Look, I think it's important. They lost a few receivers. They had 2 receivers last year. Did not realize this until about a month ago, that they had 2 receivers that were tops in the ACC, that were leading the ACC, and that's where a lot of success came from Jamie Newman. So when I watched Jamie Newman play against Clemson, I thought he was not very good until I realized his 2 top receivers were gone, so he was playing with a bunch of freshmen. So interesting enough, Coach, when you look at this Wake Forest squad, I think 8 wins is maybe I'm being a little too optimistic. They could be 8-4, they could be 4-8 on this. It all depends on, you have to beat Appalachian State, you have to go on there, and you're probably not going to beat Notre Dame, but you don't have to with the record or with the schedule they have. You need to beat Duke, and you got to take care of a team like Syracuse, and you've got to beat schools like Boston College moving forward. Now, they have some tough games against the teams like Clemson, of course, Louisville, Notre Dame, possibly NC State. But this Wake Forest team, Dave Clawson, I have a lot of faith in him. I like what he's done so far, but I'll say 7-5 for this squad. But Wake Forest, this is a good club moving forward.
Well, they have done a good job up there, but I think what you have to look at is they're probably not going to lose to Appalachian State this year. Okay, so that reverses one of their losses from last year. I'd say that's a pretty good possibility. Plus the fact that they may end up upsetting one of these other teams that they have coming in there. But it's going to be tough, obviously, against some teams that they're probably not going to prevail. But I think you're right. I think they got a good chance to get back to somewhere around 8 wins, 7 or 8 wins is probably going to be there where they end up.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what, Fred, if Fred's listening to us right now, Fred, you know what? Be hopeful. They could definitely use you right now, but nonetheless, this is a Wake Forest team that it all comes down to, in the ACC, Clemson, and they have to play Clemson. There's no getting around Clemson, but you know what? Dave Clawson's done a good job getting that squad ready. In the quarterback position, I think will be fine in Sam Hartman. This is a highly touted kid. They're excited about him moving forward. They have a lot of young talent. We saw that last year.
Can I say this? Should have mentioned this. I think losing their quarterback from last year, who was obviously very productive, and has moved on now, transferred to Georgia. So obviously there are quite a few people that feel that he's an exceptional quarterback. You can't lose a guy like that and not lose some momentum, some continuity with your offensive football team, especially at the quarterback position. So that's the one big question mark I would put up there, and hopefully they can close that gap as quickly as possible.
Absolutely. That's the quarterback position. We've seen it ruin and make teams. And you're right. Jamie Newman was a phenomenal talent moving on to Georgia, and this guy's already predicted to be possibly, at the ceremony there for the Heisman Trophy. But, look, they have a lot of faith in him. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. But nonetheless, Coach, listen, we're up against a break. When we come back into the quick break here, we're going to talk a little bit about the Dak Prescott situation. If we have some time, we'll talk about, maybe Isaiah Simmons. Going to be really interesting to see what Cliff Kingsbury is doing there in Arizona to maybe change his game a little bit. We'll talk about that when we come back right here on Talk Football with Coach K on ESPN Pensacola.
I'm attorney Stephen Luongo with Levin, Papantonio, Thomas, Mitchell, Rafferty, and Proctor in Pensacola, Florida. Distracted driving is a dangerous epidemic on America's roadways. In 2016 alone, over 3,000 people were killed in motor vehicle crashes involving distracted drivers. This according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. For more information, please visit us today online at levinlaw.com. Please be safe on the roadways. Stop the text, stop the wrecks.
When you're looking for a great deal on a reliable new or certified pre-owned vehicle, you can't beat Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola. Bob Tyler Toyota has the best selection in town at incredible low prices. You can check out their amazing inventory from Camrys to Tundra trucks to 4Runners. It's all at Bob Tyler Toyota, and you can find it online at bobtylertoyota.com. Also score a touchdown this football season with the car of your dreams. Again, it's only at Bob Tyler Toyota in Car City, Pensacola.
There's only one place in town for the lowest prices and greatest selection of firearms. Pensacola Indoor Shooting Range. Visit our fully stocked Gun Pro shop for new and used firearms, accessories, and ammunition. Check out the Indoor Shooting Range. We offer rentals on guns, including fully automatic machine guns and silencers. Ladies, this is the safe place to learn how to use a gun. Plus, Tuesday is Ladies' Day. Women shoot for half price all day. The best place to buy firearms in Pensacola. Pensacola Indoor Shooting Range, Highway 29 in Car City.
I'm Troy Rafferty, and many of you know about my love for sports and my longtime support for our local high school athletes. One thing these fine young people have taught me over the years is this: whether it's on the ball field, in the classroom, or in a court of law, always work your hardest and achieve the best results possible. And that is the commitment we make to our clients and our community.
Levin Papantonio in Pensacola since 1955.
The teams, the games, the fans, the local talk. This is ESPN Pensacola 1330 AM, 99.1 FM.
Welcome back to Talk Football with Coach K. JP here with you, alongside former NFL head coach Kay Stevenson on this Thursday afternoon. Final segment. Coach, I want to talk about this. It's something that I thought was interesting that came out, of course. Nate Burleson, the former NFL wide receiver, he hosts a show on NFL Network. Look, very respectable guy, of course, but they were talking about the whole situation with Emmitt Smith. We talked about it yesterday, saying, listen, the Cowboys don't have time and should not be playing chicken with Dak Prescott right now. Nate Burleson said, I disagree. He said, look, all respect to Emmitt Smith. Now, with people that don't remember, Emmitt Smith had a holdout, of course, that went into the regular season, and the Cowboys looked pretty rough without him the first couple games there, and then Jerry Jones ended up signing him. Now, different scenario here. Nate Burleson said, listen, that team was built around Emmitt Smith. This team is not necessarily built around Dak Prescott. They've built, they've got weapons around him, but they have to remember, everybody needs to understand that Andy Dalton, when you look at the career that he had in Cincinnati, you kind of negate him a little bit because of the record that he has. Let's go back and look at when he was successful, the talent that he had around him, and the way the team was built. This is where Nate Burleson said, listen, you can argue, but it's definitely arguable to say that Andy Dalton could have as much success, if not more, with the Dallas Cowboys than Dak Prescott. So, the Cowboys, they have all the leverage right now, and, Coach, we talked about this. Dak, you know what? He can say what he wants to. He's a promising young quarterback, and it's nothing against him. But this is he's had the talent around him the entire time. And look, he's done well. I don't call him elite, but you know what? I like what Nate Burleson said, just solely because you know what? People are starting to recognize Andy Dalton. He deserves some respect. So, Coach, when you look at Andy Dalton, this is a guy, we talked about it. He could have just as much success as Dak Prescott. And you know what? You've mentioned it as well, that the Cowboys may not be necessarily too favorable on Dak Prescott.
I've said this for 2 days now, and I'll say it again. Yes, they're in a good situation with Andy Dalton. That's a very, very, very smart move. They don't really feel like, it's obvious they don't feel like Dak Prescott is their quarterback that they want for the future, that they want to invest in as their future great quarterback. They don't feel that way. It's just very obvious. So I think he's right. I think Burleson's right. And if it comes down to push or shove, Dak Prescott's people should be very, very careful because they could decide just to go with Dalton.
I agree. I think it's important to look at it from that situation and what that means for them. But, Coach, real quick, we've got about a minute and a half here. Look, Isaiah Simmons,
let me comment on Simmons real quick. I know what you're leading up to and what was said about one position, him playing one position. Somebody doesn't know what they're talking about. Listen, the guy is very, very talented. He could be playing one position, meaning a particular type safety that they could use, where he could obviously cover a slot receiver. He's very, or a back, certainly move out to the slot or wide. He could cover them. You could move him up to do two things only. One, with that great speed and athletic ability, rush the passer, let him come and rush the passer, or let him cover from there. Fake or coming on a blitz and cover there. Now, he can do those things, and somebody would say, some commentator would say, oh, my gosh, look, he's playing 3 different positions. No, he's not playing 3 different positions. He's just using the versatility of playing one position and fully utilizing the capability of that one position. You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. But he's really only playing one position. And so it's funny how people that don't know will interpret things so drastically different.
Yeah, I agree, Coach. I think, you know what, Cliff Kingsbury, that's not a good move on his part. But you know what? Well, we'll see. You're right, though. This is a guy that looks like he's playing 3 positions, but depending on how the scheme is and whatever's going on, it's always – hindsight's not always 20/20 on that. But, Coach, listen, that sound means time for us to go. As usual, we have so much we didn't get to today. But you know what? We'll work at getting it tomorrow on Friday. Coach, it's been a pleasure.
You bet. Look forward to it, JT.
Absolutely, Coach. It's been a pleasure as well. And listen, we appreciate our listeners as well. We'll be back tomorrow, same time, talking some football with you right here on Talk Football with Coach K on ESPN Pensacola.
I'm Jason Fitz. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Let's start you off with the headlines that you need to know. All right, this is going to be the first Friday where NBA players are going to be withheld from some cash. They're not going to be making quite as much right now as starting this weekend. The negotiated temporary 25% pay cut goes into action. So $30 million will be withheld from player paychecks on Friday. Should be noted, though, 5 of the top 10 earners in the NBA this season, LeBron, Steph Curry, John Wall, Blake Griffin, and Paul George, have already been paid in full. So they won't see any pay decrease on Friday. They will, however, see IOUs coming in where they'll essentially have to pay back money that they've already been given. So we'll see how that looks moving forward. Speaking of money, it's going to get ugly for Major League Baseball. Tampa Bay Rays ace Blake Snell has said he will not play this season for a reduced salary, especially because the risk of contacting the coronavirus is, quote, just not worth it. So he's voicing his opposition to the Major League Baseball reported proposal of a 50-50 revenue split with the players for a coronavirus-shortened season in a video posted to social media Wednesday, because that's the move to do right there. You go to social media. As part of that, he said, y'all got to understand, man, for me to take a pay cut, not happening because the risk is through the roof. No, I got to get my money. I'm not playing unless I get mine, okay? He went on also to point out that by the time he takes a pay cut and gets taxed, is it even going to be worth getting on the field to play? This is going to be an ugly debate moving forward as Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball players will have to decide what everyone's comfortable with. In a world where I want athletes to be comfortable getting out on the field and they deserve the same right as everybody else to express their comfort with that, it still becomes a very ugly debate when you have rich people arguing with rich people about who's comfortable playing, and all of us seem to just care about getting sports back on the field. So we'll see how that plays moving forward. And lastly, a little UFC moment here for you. Last night, Glover Teixeira knocked out Anthony Smith by a TKO at 1 minute, 4 seconds of the 5th round. Teixeira's 40 years old and 6 years after his most recent title shot has now won 4 straight fights. He said it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you get hit and keep coming forward in his post-fight interview. So a little great moment there from last night's UFC event. Those are the headlines that you need. First, take your take on ESPN Radio, ESPN News. I'm Jason Fitz. We're asking you who's on your NBA Mount Rushmore. 888 say ESPN, 888-729-3776. Who should be on your Mount Rushmore for the NBA? 888 say ESPN. Remember, there's only 4 faces on Mount Rushmore. A lot of you guys trying to put 5 in on Twitter. You can tweet me at Jason Fitz. It's okay. It's a pandemic. So